BioPhoenix here, and today we're going to be talking about something that's more recent, and this happens to be Aquapazza, Aqua Plus Dream Match, but we're going to call it Aquapazza just because it's a lot easier. So this game was originally an arcade game that got released in 2011. Yeah, that's right, they're still making arcade games in Japan. And probably the most recent arcade game that I can think of off the top of my head would have to be Pokken, which is a Pokemon fighting game with the creators of Tekken. So yes, the arcade scene in Japan is still going pretty strong, while here, not so much, and it's kind of unfortunate. And then in 2012, the game got ported to the PlayStation 3 with some new features, and then in the year 2013, it got a North American release. And you know, I'm actually very surprised that a game like this got released in North America, and I'll explain why in a little bit. And it was developed by Examu and published by Atlus in North America. Now, in case you don't know who Examu are, one of their most iconic games that they've made, and well, as iconic as it can be, would have to be the Arcana Heart series. And this is a 2D fighting game. And it's not your average 2D fighting game, because this one is actually a collaboration between two companies. So the first company that you got is Leaf. They make visual novels on PC. And then the other company is called Aquaplus. They also make visual novels on PC as well. But they also have a music division and even a restaurant, believe it or not. Now, one thing I do find to be funny about the whole restaurant thing is that one gaming company that is very well known used to have something like that, and that happened to be Nintendo. Now, I'm sure most of you know that Nintendo was doing things before the NES was a thing, or even Donkey Kong, or even that one Pong console that they made. But one of the other things that they'd done before was hotels, and I would imagine that those hotels had restaurants within them, so yeah, Nintendo has actually done something like that before. It's just some random trivia that I think you may find to be kind of interesting. I mean, I thought that was kind of interesting. So anyways, yes, the company Aquaplus has a restaurant division. So this fighting game takes properties from these two companies, kind of like Marvel vs. Capcom or the King of Fighters, so with that being said, it's a crossover game. So here are the series that are involved with this game. So you got one called Two Heart, Tears to Tiara, Kaizato, Rutez, White Album, Cosmic Party, and there's one more but I can't pronounce the name, but I'll try my best. It's called Utawara Umano. But if you want to know what this translates to, it translates specifically as the one being sung. Well, that's a lot easier to say. And the reason why I'm so surprised that this game actually got a North American release is because all of these visual novels never got released outside of Japan. But after this game came out, two games from Aquaplus actually did get a North American release and even a European release, such as Dungeon Traveler 2, which is a sequel to Two Heart Dungeon Traveler, and Tears to Tiara 2, Hair of the Overlord, which I happen to own a copy of that one. Although it is kind of weird that we got the sequel to them, but we never got the first one, but oh well. Now when it comes to the characters in this game, there's quite a bit, and I'm not going to go into them specifically. So from Tears to Tiara, you got 3 playable characters, and 3 characters that are partners. And then from Two Heart, you got 5 playable characters, but with 3 partners to choose from. And then from Cosmic Party, there's only 2, and they're both partners. White Album also has 2, and they're both partners, as again. Kazuito only has 1, and that's a playable character. Rutez only has 1, and that's a partner. And that last one that I have a hard time pronouncing has 4 playable characters, but 2 partners. So you got a pretty good variety from each of them. So I've never played any of these games before, so I'm not really familiar with any of them, and yes, the characters that are in Tears to Tiara 2 are not in this one at all, so that doesn't count. And that's all I have to say about that. So let's talk about the story, and well, there's not a whole lot I can say about the story really. I mean, it's a crossover game. I'm not expecting the story to be anything amazing, and you know what? It isn't. Now, usually between fights there is some story, and then even there's like an ending and a beginning, but it's really just the characters interacting with each other and nothing much else, so really, I can't say a whole lot about it, but it really just has to do with the fact that a whole bunch of worlds are coming together and, well, they just have to fight each other because someone just happens to be an asshole. So unless you're actually familiar with any of these series, then there's a good chance you probably won't even care. But I will have to say that the dialogue can be pretty funny at times, so yeah, there's nothing else I can say. So let's move on to the more important things, like the gameplay. So as I already said, it's a 2D fighting game, and not only do you pick a character to fight as, but you also pick a partner. And you cannot play as the partner. All the partner does is that the partner will always be in the background watching over you, and when you press the X button when the gauge is ready, then they'll do an attack of some sort. So it is kind of like the striker system that was in one of the King of Fighters games. and I believe Marvel vs. Capcom had something like that as well. Now one thing with this game that is very unique is that it has a very interesting mechanic where you get bonuses depending on your actions. Where if you're mostly playing offense, you actually get more power bonuses, but if you're mostly playing defense, which not only boosts your defense, but it also makes countering a little bit easier. And of course you also get your special attacks, you get some throws, you get some dashes, all that good stuff. And your health has 2 layers, which I think is nice. So I would have to say that the offense and defense bonuses is definitely one of the most unique things about this game that makes it really stand out. At least compared to other fighting games that I've played where I never heard of anything like that happening before. So for now, let's take a look at some game modes, such as like story mode, which is like arcade mode but with story in it. And then there's another story mode, which plays the story of a character that you beat the original story with but at a different point of view. And then there's versus mode, which you can choose to play against a character, whether it be a friend or a computer. And then there's score attack, which is kind of like arcade, but just, you know, you're trying to get a high score. And then there's training mode, which is pretty self-explanatory. I mean, you just go there and you train the different movesets. And then there's an online mode, but I didn't really mess around with the online that much. Mostly because I don't really play online that much unless I'm playing with friends. But very rarely I'll go online and just play with some randoms. Also, one thing I will have to say is that I'm terrible at fighting games in general, so of course I'm always going to get my ass kicked, but sometimes it's still pretty fun, just, you know, I just don't do it very often. And then there's the gallery, which just has some artwork that you unlock throughout the game, and little things like that. So the amount of game modes within here are not too bad. I think they could have added a couple more, but with the ones that are here, I'm okay with it. So I'm not going to complain about that. So let's move on to the controls. And I have to say the controls are generally pretty good. So square is a light attack, triangle is a heavy attack, circle usually does some kind of unique attack, and X allows you to use your partner's attack. Holding back is the block. Pressing forward twice allows you to dash forward, and up is a jump, but I don't think I need to say that because that's pretty standard. So I do have to say that the layout for the controls are really good. But as for the game's movement, it's a little bit slow paced than you'd think. Because the walking in this game is generally pretty slow, but the attacking is pretty quickly, so at least that's pretty good. And I never noticed any frame rate drops at all, so that's another good thing. Now personally, I don't consider this game to be as fast as something like Street Fighter, but it's at least not slow as shit. So personally for me, I think the controls are actually pretty good. Now, like I already said before, I'm not very good at fighting games. And I have to tell you, whenever I do a review for a fighting game, it's always hard for me to explain if the controls are good or not, because like I said, I'm not very good at them, and I'm not always trying to master all the characters or anything like that. I mean, I just play these just to have a good time. So with that being said, for I myself, I think they are pretty good, but of course I don't know what some fighting game enthusiasts would say, but then again, I'm not one of those people, so therefore, you're not going to hear anything what they would say in this video. But as far as I can tell, I see nothing that's really worth complaining about. Well, maybe except the fact that the movement is a little bit slow, but that's really not a big deal. So for now, let's take a look at the graphics, and I must say the graphics are pretty damn amazing looking. I mean, the sprite work for the characters look really good and well detailed. The backgrounds are very nice looking. They have a lot of detail and some pretty cool animation going on. Now one thing about the whole partner thing that I forgot to mention, but I figured I might as well mention it here, is that I like the fact that you see your partner always in the background, where in most games that do have a partner system, they usually kind of appear out of nowhere and do their thing and then they just leave. Now there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever, but I just think it's really neat just to see your partner walking around in the background. So with that being said, there's not much else to say other than that the graphics in this game are very nice looking, and it's probably one of the best looking 2D fighters on the system. Now as for the music in this game, I have to say the music is actually pretty cool. Now personally, I don't think it's the best music you'll ever hear in a fighting game. That would probably have to go to Guilty Gear. But I do think that the music is pretty good. I mean, it's pretty upbeat, and it does have some pretty catchy songs. So there's nothing I can really complain about with the music, so with that being said, I think the music is generally pretty good. Now as for the voice acting, well, the voices in this game are only in Japanese, but that's to be expected considering that all these series that are involved with this game have only had a Japanese release at the time. So with that being said, there's not a whole lot I can say considering that I don't speak Japanese, so I can't really understand if it's like really good voice acting or bad voice acting. Now sometimes you can tell if something is like good or bad if it's like, you know, just really irritating and all that, but in this game, no, nothing really irritated me. So as to be suspected, there's nothing much I can say. Now, if you want to buy this game, it's kind of hard to tell the exact price point because, you know, it's a very late entry PS3 game. But when I just looked up on eBay just to see some general prices, usually it goes from about $15 to $30. And I have seen it a couple of times, but the only places where I have seen this game are at places like EB Games and GameStop, which are, you know, pretty much the same damn thing. But as I already said, it's kind of hard to tell with a newer game that just got released or one that is somewhat recently, because I don't know, I consider 2013 to be somewhat recent. But just when checking some prices online, I think the game is pretty affordable, which I consider to be a good thing so more people can get a chance to play it. But one thing I figured I might as well mention now is that the Japanese release of this game actually did get a special edition, and getting that one is a little bit much. But if it's something that you feel you really need to have, then, well, you might as well go for it if you want. But just from what I looked up on that one, it won't be cheap. And I don't even know what comes with it, but it does have a pretty cool looking box, so at least that's pretty cool. So now let's move on, and well, if I were to rate this one, I'm gonna have to give it a 7 out of 10. I think it is a pretty good fighting game. Now, it isn't like the best fighting game you'll ever play on the system, but I do think that it is pretty unique, and it is pretty wacky, but it works fine. And one thing I should mention that I probably should have mentioned earlier is that a lot of the characters actually do play the same, or at least somewhat the same. Now what I mean by that is that all of them have like the same basic combinations. But of course different characters will have like more reach, some of them will have more projectiles, some of them will be more grab types. Now I know some people don't like it when characters like kind of play the same with the same basic combinations. But as for me, I don't mind that much, but then again, like I already said, I'm not very good at these games, I'm just playing them just to have a good time. And that offense and defense mechanic is pretty interesting, so I gotta give them some credit for that. And even if you're not a fan of any of the series that are in here, I mean hell, I didn't even know who any of these people were, I still enjoyed myself with this game. And some of the cutscenes were pretty funny, so at least I did get something out of that part. But personally, my favorite character that I like to use in this one, I would probably have to pick Sorcerer, not only because I think she looks cool, and not only that, but she kind of looks like something out of Valkyrie Profile, which is a pretty sweet game. But I also just really liked her moveset too, so that's just if you want to know who my favorite character I like to use was in this game. Even if I don't know anything about the damn character's originality. So whether if you're familiar with them or not, I still think this game is pretty enjoyable. So with that being said, I find this game is pretty enjoyable. Now obviously it's not perfect, but I still found it to be very fun. So if you like fighting games but you want something very different, then I will at least recommend this to you. Also thank fuck this game does not have hidden DLC on it. So that's all I have to say. So, I hope you enjoyed this video, thank you for watching and commenting.